Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hi everyone, welcome back to Beginner English class. Today we are going to cover up jobs, work and career. So now let's go to the next slide. On your computer, now you are seeing a conversation between Katie and Kenji. This is their conversation when they met each other for the first time. So now let's all read the conversation together. I will be Katie and Kenji since today I have no partner. So I hope you guys can accept that. Anyway, let's move on. Hi, I'm Katie. What's your name? Hello, my name is Kenji. It's nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. Where are you from? I am from Japan. So, what do you do, Kenji? I'm a teacher. Where do you teach? I teach engineering at a university in Tokyo. How about you? What do you do? Well, I'm a childcare worker. I look after preschool age children. Where do you work? I work for a small nursery school in Oxford. Wow, do you like it? Yes, I do. I love working with children. They are a lot of fun. What do you like to do in your free time? I guess I like swimming and playing tennis. I also like to cook. How about you? Do you have any hobbies? Well, not really, but I enjoy watching baseball and I sometimes go to karaoke. Okay. After reading the conversation with me, so now you are noticing that there are several expressions that I have been underlining. So the first one is, so what do you do, Kanji? And then the second is, where do you teach? And then the third is, what do you do? And then the last one is, where do you work? So those are the expression if we want to ask someone's job or where does someone work. Itu adalah ekspresi untuk menanyakan pekerjaan seseorang dan di mana seseorang itu bekerja. So now let's see another expressions on how to ask someone's job atau ekspresi yang lain yang digunakan untuk menanyakan pekerjaan seseorang. So we have 5 expressions. So now let's all read it together. The first one is, what do you do? And then the second is, can I ask you what you do? Okay. What do you do is a little bit not polite, according to some of the literature in English. So, can I ask what you do is a little more polite daripada yang nomor 1. Lebih sedikit lebih sopan, can I ask you what you do daripada what do you do. Tapi apabila ingin menggunakan what do you do, it's also okay. Why number 2 is a little more polite? Because you are asking permission to pose a personal question. Jadi kalau yang nomor 2 ini seakan-akan kita meminta izin untuk mengutarakan atau menanyakan mengenai personal question atau pertanyaan yang sifatnya itu sangat personal. Number 3, what does she or he do for a living? And then number 4, what line of work are you in? And then number 5, what kind of work do you do? Okay, so those are 5 expressions on how to ask someone's job. Okay, now let's see number 1. What do you do? So the subject is you. So the question will change into what does she do? Okay. So if the subject change, the way we form a question is also change. Kalau subjeknya berubah, semisal subjeknya bukan you, maka nanti ketika kita ingin menanyakan, tensesnya juga agak ada sedikit perubahan. Okay, but do not worry, we are going to talk about the tenses later on. Okay, so for number 1, what do you do? Okay, so the subject is you. So the question will be different if the subject is no longer you. Pertanyaan itu nanti tensesnya akan berubah apabila subjeknya bukan lagi you. So the question will change into what does she do if the subject is he or she. But do not worry, we are going to talk on how to form a question with different subject. Nanti di next slide kita akan membahas bagaimana menyusun pertanyaan apabila subjeknya itu berubah, bukan you lagi, tapi bisa we, bisa they, bisa he atau she. Number 2, can I ask what you do? That is also when the subject is you. Kalau subjeknya you, pertanyaannya akan kayak gitu. If the subject change, kalau subjeknya berubah, so the change might be into can I ask what she does? It's no longer do, bukan lagi do tapi does. So that means that the subject is no longer you, tapi subjeknya berubah menjadi he atau she. But do not worry, we are going to learn about that on the next slide. So number 3, number 4, number 5 itu juga pertanyaannya akan berubah apabila subjeknya juga berubah. Kalau subjeknya she or he, maka tetap di sini does. Kalau subjeknya you, we, dan they, it's no longer does but it becomes do. Okay, what line of work are you in? Subjeknya adalah you. So, are-nya akan berubah menjadi is apabila you-nya dirubah menjadi he atau she. So, it's gonna be what line of work is she in? Or what kind of work is he in? Okay, number 5. What kind of work do you do? Okay, that question is only when the subject is you, atau they, atau we. Kalau subjeknya itu berubah menjadi he atau she, so the question might change into what kind of work does she do? Okay, so now let's see on how to form a questions regarding to the different of subject. Okay, so here is the thing. So this is the question word. This question word is always started with what, and then we have auxiliary do and does. So the question is, when do we use do and when do we use does? Kapan kita pakai do dan kapan kita pakai does? We use do if the subject is you, they, and also the last one we have we ya. Ini saya kurang di sini. Harusnya ada we di sini. Silahkan ditambahkan sendiri nanti. And we use the auxiliary does if the subject are he or she. Kalau subjeknya he atau she, berarti auxiliary do does-nya dipilih yang does. Oke. Di sini you, we, dan they menggunakan do, he, she menggunakan yang does. And then after that we talk about the verb one. Oke, atau verb setelah kata ini. Kalau depannya do atau does, belakangnya tetap akan ditambahkan dengan do. Oke, jadi mau pertanyaan, mau auxiliary yang dipakai adalah do atau does, verb di bagian belakang ini itu tetap akan menggunakan verb do. Oke, so the question would be what do you do? Atau what do they do? Or what does he do? And what does she do? If you guys want to add for a living, kalau mau ditambahkan for a living, pertanyaannya akan berbunyi, what do you do for a living? Or what do they do for a living? And then what does he do for a living? And the last one, what does she do for a living? Oke, jadi what do you do? What do they do? Dengan what do you do for a living dan what do they do for a living itu sama saja. Sama-sama menanyakan tentang pekerjaan dari orang. Oke, which one that I should pick, Miss? Mana yang harus saya pilih, Miss? Terserah. Mau menggunakan what do you do juga boleh, menggunakan what do you do for a living juga boleh. Yang perlu diperhatikan adalah ketika menggunakan do atau do for a living di bagian belakang, yang penting adalah auxiliary do atau does-nya. Ingat, auxiliary do atau does ini berubah apabila subjeknya juga berubah. Jadi silahkan disesuaikan dengan subjeknya. So now here I have some of the answer atau beberapa jawaban untuk pertanyaan what do you do or what do you do for a living. Oke, sekarang kita lihat jawaban pertama ada I am a nurse. Oke. So now the question might be, Miss, when do we use a and also when do we use an? So we use an if we pronounce a word and then the sound that we made is in a vocal. Atau ketika kita mengucapkan suatu pekerjaan kemudian berbunyi vokal A, I, U, E, atau O. Now let's see another example. Ada kata actress. Actress di situ ketika kita mengucapkan atau ketika kita mempronounce itu kan depannya terdengar huruf vokalnya ya, actress, ada kata e-nya gitu kan. Sehingga ketika ada actress berarti ditambahkan dengan an. She is an actress. Oke, kalau contoh yang lainnya lagi ada actor. Actor ini kan diawali ketika kita memulai pronounce di awal itu kan berbunyi vocal actor, sehingga he is an actor. Oke, sehingga ada kata n-nya. Kemudian architect. Architect juga ada vokalnya ketika kita pronounce untuk pertama kali, sehingga ketika dimasukkan dalam kalimat dia menjadi she is an architect. And then the last one we have astronaut. For astronaut, because when we pronounce astronaut, kita ada vokal A-nya, sehingga ditambahkan dengan an. She is an astronaut, atau he is an astronaut. Oke. Jadi selain kata-kata yang ketika dipronounce atau diucapkan itu awalnya tidak terdengar vokal, maka tidak menggunakan an. Oke. Now let's see another way to ask what do you do or what do you do for a living. You are going to see number 1 and number 2 below the table. So the first one is what kind of work do you do? Okay, kalau di atas kan what do you do for a living atau what do you do? Now what kind of work do you do? If the subject is you, then it is free for you to use do, and if the subject is she or he, and then please change the word do or the auxiliary do into does. Kalau subjeknya you atau they berarti di sini menggunakan do. What kind of work do you do? While if the subject is he or she, then please change the questions into what kind of work does she or he do? Oke, belakangnya tidak berubah ya untuk yang di sini ya. Sama seperti yang pertanyaan what does he or she do? Does-nya di bagian depan, bagian belakangnya do-nya tetap tidak dirubah menjadi does. Oke, number 2, another way to ask what do you do or what do you do for a living adalah what line of work are you in? Remember that verb be itu ada is, am, are untuk yang present. Apabila subjeknya you and they, please use are. And if the subject is he or she, then please change the verb be into is. Kalau subjeknya you, dirubah menjadi what line of work are you in? Kalau subjeknya she atau he, silakan dirubah menjadi what line of work is she or he in? Oke. Next adalah menanyakan soal where these people work atau kerjanya di mana sih? Oke. So now let's see the first example. Where does a doctor work? A doctor works at the hospital. Oke. Pertanyaan pertama, using does. because it is only single atau singular. A doctor, tandanya berarti dokternya cuma satu. Oke, entah itu dokternya laki-laki atau perempuan, auxiliary do-nya harus tetap menggunakan does karena itu tunggal atau singular. And then number 2, where do they work? The question is using do because the subject is they. So if the subject is you, we, or they, then please change the auxiliary into do. Where do they work? They work at NASA. Okay, now let's see on how to form the question about where these people work. Kita lihat bagaimana caranya membuat pertanyaan untuk menanyakan di manakah kamu atau mereka atau dia laki-laki atau dia perempuan bekerja. First, we have question word. It starts with where, and then we have auxiliary do or does. The auxiliary does is for he or she, while the auxiliary do is for I, you, we, or they. Okay, so the example would be, where does he or she work? Where do you or we or they work? Oke, yang dirubah bagian do atau does-nya saja. Untuk verb bagian belakang tetap verb 1 tidak ditambahkan dengan s, apapun subjeknya. Yang terpenting adalah fokus ke bagian auxiliary do atau does-nya. So now let's see more detailed question atau beberapa pertanyaan detail tentang orang apabila sedang terlibat percakapan soal pekerjaan. First, how long have you been doing that? Sudah berapa lama melakukan pekerjaan itu? The subject is you, so that's why you need to use the auxiliary have. And if you change the subject into she or he, then please also change the auxiliary into has. Kalau subjeknya you pakainya have, kalau subjeknya he atau she menggunakan has. So it's gonna be, how long has she or he been doing that? If you guys take a look closer at the example yang ada di sini cuma berubah di bagian subjek dan di bagian auxiliary do atau does-nya. Let's see another example. How long have you been with the company? Di sini subjeknya you, so if the subject is you, then the auxiliary is going to be have. And then if the subject is she or he, the auxiliary has have, it's gonna be has. How long have you been with the company? Change into how long has she or he been with the company? And then the last one is, have you been with the company long? Or has she or he been with the company long? Okay. Here we have auxiliary have and here we have auxiliary has. What is different between those both is the subject. If the subject is you, use have. If the subject is she or he, then you use has. Oke, pertanyaan how long have you been doing that? Itu artinya sudah berapa lama melakukan pekerjaan itu. And then how long have you been with the company? Artinya sudah berapa lama di perusahaan itu. Have you been with the company long? Artinya sama saja dengan yang nomor 2. Sudah lama kerja dengan perusahaan tersebut. Okay. Next we have review job and occupation. Oke, kita punya beberapa job and occupation di sini. It's only 14, though job and occupation in the word are so many. So these are only some of the example. You might see the job started with A to Z in different video. Saya sudah siapkan link untuk melihat job yang diawali dari huruf A sampai huruf Z, silahkan nanti ditonton. Ini hanya sebagian saja dari job dan occupation yang ada di dunia. First we have a cook cooks food, artinya koki memasak makanan. Number 2, an astronaut flies into space. Berarti astronot terbang ke luar angkasa. A writer writes books. Berarti seorang penulis menulis buku. A dentist cures teeth. Atau dokter gigi menyembuhkan gigi. A singer sings. Yang artinya seorang penyanyi menyanyi. A dancer dances. Berarti seorang penari menari. A firefighter fights with the fire. Berarti seorang pemadam kebakaran itu tugasnya adalah melawan api. A captain controls the ship. Artinya seorang kapten itu mengontrol kapal. A sailor works on a ship. Artinya pelaut bekerja di kapal. A designer designs something. Artinya seorang desainer mendesain sesuatu. A farmer works on a farm. Berarti seorang petani bekerja di ladang. A driver drives a car. Seorang supir tugasnya adalah mengemudi mobil. A teacher teaches at schools. Artinya seorang guru mengajar di sekolah. And the last one, a doctor works at hospital. Seorang dokter bekerja di hospital. If you take a look closer, you guys will see an article. It's either a or an. Ada artikel a dan ada artikel an. So those two articles are to indicate that the person that is doing the job is a singular. Kalau ada a atau an berarti artinya kita sedang mendeskripsikan singular person atau orangnya hanya satu, tunggal saja. Contohnya a cook berarti seorang juru masak. Oke. Dan ada an astronaut berarti seorang astronot. A writer berarti seorang penulis. Oke, ini adalah cara untuk mendeskripsikan job and occupation apabila subjeknya itu tunggal. So now let's see on how to answer, bagaimana menjawab atau mendeskripsikan tentang job atau occupation dari seseorang. Pertama kita punya subjek I, you, we, they, dan ada subjek he dan she. Kalau subjeknya he dan she itu berarti tunggal laki-laki. Kalau she berarti tunggal perempuan. Oke, kalau I, you, we, dan they di sini kita menggunakan kata kerja verb atau we use verb. The example is work, teach, run, and extinguish. Extinguish artinya memadamkan. Work itu bekerja, teach itu mengajar, run itu artinya bisa berlari, tapi kalau di kalimat ini artinya adalah menjalankan. Oke, remember, if the subject is I, you, and we, and they, so the verb, the verb, you are not adding s, tidak menambahkan s-nya di kata verbnya. But if the subject is he or she, then you should put s at the end of the verb. Oke, jadi works. Let's see the example. I work at hospital. You teach at school. We run a family business. They extinguish fire in the fire zone. He works at the bank and she works at the bank. So now let's go back to the previous slide. Kita lihat previous slide-nya. Di sini ingat ada kata berarti artinya tunggal. Oke, walaupun di sini tidak menggunakan she atau he, tapi ini artinya tetap tunggal sama dengan she atau he. Kalau tunggal berarti tadi verbnya harus ditambahkan dengan s. Contoh yang ada di sini nomor 1 sampai 14 adalah contoh tunggal. Sehingga if you guys are taking a look a little bit closer, verbnya di sini semuanya ditambahkan dengan s. Ada cooks, flies, writes, cures, sings, dances, fights, controls, and so on and etc. Oke, semuanya ditambahkan dengan s karena di situ adalah tunggal. Tapi kalau subjeknya I, you, we, dan they, berarti verbnya tidak ditambahkan dengan s. So now let's translate the sentence that we have here. Dia bekerja di ladang. Oke, dia ini bisa laki-laki bisa perempuan, but I want it to be she. Saya mau ditranslate menjadi she aja. Berarti she works at the field. Because the subject is she, then the verb you should put s. Or kita bisa menggunakan kalimat he works at the field. Oke, kalau he juga tetap ditambahkan dengan s. Ingat, kalau he dan she, verbnya harus ditambahkan dengan s. And then, mereka bekerja di pasar. They work at the market. Let's see the verb. We do not put s at the end of the verb. Why? Because it is they. The subject is they. If the subject is they, then you don't need to put s at the end of the verb. Okay, so that's it. Thank you guys very much. Now please do the quiz. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.